Hello Dabblers of the Internet, JP here with another Kings of War Battle Report, this time covering Round 4 of the Clash of Kings Australia 2022 tournament that happened in Canberra 2 months ago. So if you're into some ancient Kings of War content, still 3rd edition thankfully, then watch on. Now, for those not aware, this channel is actually comprised of two kinds of content. You've got my own wargaming content, which is right now focusing on Kings of War, but you also have my wife's stitching content. So as long as you don't mind those two different things turning up in your feed, then give us a subscribe, give us a like, give us a comment. Whatever you like, we're happy to see it. So it's on to round 4, and normally I don't talk so much about the opponent that I'm about to go against, but my opponent for round 4 was actually Hugh from Direct Misfire. So that's a podcast from us that's done in Australia, in Melbourne in fact. So they're from the same area, and we go to some of the same tournaments, and we very well may have gone to a couple of the same small mini tournaments that we have here. And we've been wearing masks, so chances are if he was there I wouldn't have recognized him anyway, but it was interesting to be going against someone from Direct Misfire. Interesting why? Because they have talked about their lists before this whole event, and then they talked a whole lot about the whole event during and afterwards, and overall I would highly recommend their content as good podcast content. You've got your Counter Charge, you've got your Unplugged, you've got your Direct Misfire, and I think there's the from Lazy Pirate Gaming. I've forgotten what that one's called. But anyway, you've got your different streams of podcast content, and there's more. And if you know more of Kings of War stuff, then please put that in the comments below, because I'd be actually really excited to add more to my things, because there's a bit of downtime sometimes between different uploads, and it's good to have from different directions. Anyway, we're going against Hugh from Direct Misfire, and he was bringing his Ratkin, which I'll show you the list just after we've gone through my own. But yes, it's good content from Direct Misfire, particularly regarding this event, because it was very up-to-date and succinct, and quite funny as well to see how they broke down the lists afterwards. They said who will do the best beforehand out of the I think it was the 4 of them doing that particular podcast series, and then finding out then afterwards where that ended up placing. It was quite surprising, especially in hindsight. So let's get into my list. So my list is, you've already seen it, and if you haven't, go to the first video of this series. So that would be, I think, 007 battle report, and that will actually be a detailed breakdown. But for the people in the back that haven't heard, here is a quick breakdown of my list. I start off with the obligatory gargoyles, very good chaff. We have the tortured souls, a horde of them with Sir Jesse's boots of striding. They are the medium hammer in my army. Then we have the abyssal horseman regiment with the brew of sharpness. They are the scalpel hammer in my army. That doesn't make sense. Scalpel hammer covered in scalpels. There we go. Then we have Cronius, who is just fantastic utility and combat character, well, here at Monster in your list, because he can heal, but he can also dish out the damage now. The Abyssal Fiend also can dish out some damage. He's a bit bigger on the Titan base, but he's a good source of inspiring. Then, Abyssal Champion with his Gnome Glass Shield, wings, the wings upgrade, not the honey maze, so that he can fly around, get into someone's face and stop them. That's his job. Then I have the Abyssal Warlock, another source of inspiring, and just with a Bane Chant too. It's not that reliable. Yes, you'd like the Conjurer's Staff, but things are getting a bit tight with the points, as you can see. Then next I have the Manifestation of Baal, who has all the special rules. The main thing is, he can fly, he can do combat, he can do a whole bunch of things. He's a bit of a mini dragon, if you will, because he doesn't really have the ability to take on units by himself, but he certainly has the capability if he gets into a flank or something like that. So mini dragon. Think of the limitations of a dragon and then shrink it a little bit. But he has lightning bolt instead of a lame kind of breath attack. Then we have the final bit, which is, I guess, the most experimental of all of this, because it hadn't been used much before, and that was Khazar's Torment, which is the formation in the Forces of the Abyss, where you have to take a regiment and a horde of lower abyssals and a despoiler champion. What do you get for such a not great deal? Well, the despoiler champion gains life leech +2 aura for infantry, so those low abyssals, for instance, makes him nice and grindy. But he also gets inspiring, which is good, because he just doesn't have inspiring, and I really wish he did. But this is a way to give it to him. And as a little extra bonus, the low abyssals have the ability that when they die, all units that are in combat with them take piercing 1 hits, d3 +1 of them, and any damage done causes frozen, which is pretty hard to remember, and Yeah, anyway, I made some frozen tokens just to make sure, because I knew that that would hopefully come up, but also not hopefully, because you don't really want them to die. Anyway, if you want a whole 10-minute thing about it, then go to my first video in this series. Now on to Hugh's list. So Ratkin, never been against them. I've never fought them before. I know them obviously from Warhammer Fantasy Battles, but even in Warhammer Fantasy Battles, I hadn't played them because, you know, as far as armies go, it's one of those horde armies that you have to paint so many models for. And I mean, Kings of War is good in that you have your minimum model count, your preferred model count. You have you know, gradients in between where you don't really have to paint exactly 40 guys. It looks cool if you do, don't get me wrong, but also if you want a bit of diorama, maybe you don't want to. But either way, in Warhammer Fantasy, obviously you barring some, you know, unit filler pieces, you had to paint them all. So I just don't have much experience with the rat kind of play style, right? And also just the units, you know, just, you know, what they're called and putting them to what they're saying. Anyway, let's go through the list. We have 2 hordes of shock troops. One of them with the scrying gem, which is a cool magic item that forces your opponent to put down some units at the start, and it's D3 plus 1 of them. So, you know, just it helps get them to put stuff down so you can start placing things and see where they're going to go. And then you have a shock troops horde with plague pots that just helps them have stealthy and ensnare for 1 turn. You know, a cloud of putrefaction. I think that's what we're going for. Then we have the tunnel runners regiment, which is with the brew of sharpness. This is the real cavalry, the hammer of the army, and so these are, you know, they're the doom wheel kind of units, you know, the running wheel. Then we have a vermintide regiment, which is a little bit of chaff, just like little tiny rats. Well, big rats for us, but tiny rats compared to the fact that there's actually, you know, monster rats in this list. A regiment of warriors. Twitch Keenear, who is a fantastic little hero from the Clash of Kings 2022 edition. He's one of those casters that was brought over from Halpi's Rift. You know, they were introduced there, and then they've just been, you know, modified just a bit as they've gone into Clash of Kings 2022. And here's a cool little thing. He's got his Bane Chant and he's got Hex, but his Bane Chant 3, so it's already really good. Better than my Bane Chant 2, that's for sure. But also, whatever he does Bane Chant has the ability to completely re-roll their hit and wound roll. So as in, like, you do your hit and wound, you do your to hit and damage, and if you don't like it, you can redo it, but you have to take the new result. But, you know, that's pretty good for the cases where, you know, you're hitting on 4s or something and everything just goes horribly wrong, and you just think, oh, I just want to do it again. And so anyway, and it comes up. It's pretty cool. And then we have the Master Scurrier, so he is the assassin character of the Ratkin, so he's got duelist. He's also got some throwing knives. He's pretty cool. And he has the gnome glass shield as my guy does as well, so just the same idea that he can run into things, take them on for a turn longer than he otherwise would. Then we have the Swarm Crier for a little bit of inspiring, and then 2 mutant rat fiends. And oh boy, I was scared of these, you know, because yeah, just looking at the profiles, I go down to these guys, I'm like, oh, these are pretty big, powerful. They're powerful because they're dash 18, you know, they've got quite a few attacks, but really why they're powerful is what they bring to the rest of the army, and that is that they have a Radiance of Life, but it got improved with Clash of Kings 2022. The Radiance of Life now, apart from Abomination stuff, it does D3 wounds. D3, like it heals D3 rather than just the 1, which is, well, just exponentially better. So yeah, I was just thinking, like, oh gosh, these are terrifying in that they will make sure the rest of the army won't die at all easily, especially, you know, there's 2 of them, so they can cover a lot of that battlefield. They're on that Titan base, so yeah, not great. And then finally, something I probably should have paid more attention to, but, you know, there's a lot of new things, and so here's an even newer thing, and that's a formation, the Smoke, Mirrors, and Death. Now, a lot of people don't rate this formation very highly, but it's pretty cool, because you got your 2 shredders, which are your war machines, right? They just sit there. They're different to your, I guess, your catapult, because they don't have as high a piercing. They're only piercing 1, but they have 3 shots. So, you know, you're more likely to get some wounds, but you can't target, like, the really heavy things. You have to target maybe not so, like, defense. It won't take out defense 6 stuff at all, for sure. And defense 5 stuff's not even a sure thing. So they're good for taking out your regular kind of infantry and stuff. So yeah, hence they're called a shredder. And then you have the Death Engine Spear, which is like a Doom Wheel chariot. Oh, I think it's on a chariot base, but it's the shooting variant. I think there's a Death Engine Impaler, which is the combat version, and then there's a Death Engine Spear, which is the shooting version. Now what makes it cool is that, yeah, they get steady aim, and they get some cool rules, but what they really can do is then they can redeploy. So you can just put these down and redeploy them again later at the end of the whole deployment before Scout. So it's actually kind of a theme for Hugh's list, is that you got the Scrying Gem that forces me to put down some stuff, and then he can waste his first 3 deployments just putting down the Smoke Mirrors and Death formation. So Shredder, Shredder, Death Engine, Spewer. So I have to put down, you know, between D3 plus 1, between 5 and 7 things before he really needs to start committing things to any particular place. And then he can still do things like put the Vermintide wherever he likes. You know, there's certainly some units here that could just kind of go anywhere and still wait out until I put down all my very important stuff, and he's like, well, my tunnel runnels will just go right here in front of the thing you really wish they were in front of. And so that's just a very powerful kind of thing, and it just means I should have changed the way I was going to deploy. So let's go into deployment. Let's take a look. Scenario is invade. Very simple scenario. You got to cross that line and try and have more unit strength in your opponent's half. So he wants to cross to me, and I want to cross to him, and we got to try and stop each other if we can. Because if we just kind of let our entire armies, I think he has more unit strength than me anyway. And so that was already concerning me, so I needed to think of ways to do it. But let's get into the terrain, and then I'll talk about what happened with the deployment. So the terrain that we have on this table, on this ice-themed table, which had nice ice-themed hills. So the 2 hills are right next to each other, they're straddling the midline. So they're essentially the left flank, all hilly, hill terrain, with an obstacle right there, and then that's it for the left. In the middle, we have this blocking terrain here, this hut, we have a forest, and then we have the other obstacle right there. And then the right flank, we have the other forest, then we have some difficult terrain, so that's just kind of this scrubby stuff, another piece of blocking terrain being this chapel, and the last bit of difficult terrain right down here. So, how did deployment go? So it's a bit hard to tell because it was kind of just happening, and I'm like, well, I probably should get some pictures, because even the deployment was part of, like, normally I can just, you know, take one picture right at the end and just be like, and this is how it is. But what happened, like I said, first he rolled his Scrying Gem, and he got 3, so that's 4 things I have to deploy. I have to deploy 4 things straight away. And so I deployed some of the stuff that, you know, I just like, oh, well, this is where it's going to go. So I put the lower Abyssal Horde here, I measured the gap, and I'm like, okay, cool. So they can just walk right up here, and they'll have limited stuff that can stop them. You know, that was the idea. They can walk up there, the other lower Abyssals can go up the other side, you know, they're a bit more vulnerable, but, you know, they'll get there. So unit strength 3, unit strength 4, pretty cool, right? And then I think I put the Despoiler Champion between them, and probably put the Abyssal Fiend here. I don't quite remember exactly what was placed in what order, because there was just, everything was changing again. And then, like I said, with the Smoke Mirrors and Death, he could then just place the Shredder, and the Spewer. He just placed them in the corner here. So he just put like one there, and so I had to put down a unit, and then he put another one just in the corner, and I had to put down a unit, and he put another one there. And he was actually saying he was doing that, you know, it was actually quite nice he was doing that, because it reminded me that they could move, to go anywhere. And he said, you know, I'm going to move them anyway, so I'm just going to put them in the corner so that you know. And that was really good, because then I was like, okay, cool. So, like, that's not where they're going to be. Because he could have, you know, he could put all the war machines over here, and then I don't know, I try and redistribute my entire army away from the war machines, and then you'd be like, oh, actually I'm on this side. So, you know, that was actually quite nice. But still, it just meant I had absolutely no idea where they were going to go. So, as I had to put down 7 of my 13 units, so leaving me only 6, you know, it starts becoming, I have to put down things that are important. So, I mean, I put down the Gargoyles, I put down the Abyssal Champion in the middle, I put Bale in the middle, because I'm like, well, these guys can go in the middle, they got their wings, they can fly 10, 20, you know, they don't really mind having to do some distance, but, you know, some of these other units, they're not going to traverse the entire board in the game, so they have to be kind of where they need to be. And the main thing in the end was where I was trying to put those Abyssal Horsemen, because I knew the Shredders would go for them. They might not kill them, but, you know, I was scarred after my experience with the Balefire catapults. So, you know, seeing some war engines, even though they're only piercing 1, but they have that shattering. It's just like, oh, I don't want to get hit by them. So I was just looking at the terrain and seeing what would be the best place for them to be just not shot, and that turned out to be where these hills are. So I plonked them right behind these two sets of hills because and with the obstacle and this blocking terrain, the arc on them is very limited. I don't even think you can shoot them. So that was where I put them, and I thought that's fine. But then things started getting redeployed, and he started putting down the rest of his army, and I realized that what it was initially here, this is just kind of my, my left. This is a flanking maneuver. Ended up not being a flanking maneuver. The bulk of his army was facing off against my Abyssal Horsemen, and that's not good because these guys can't take on an entire army by themselves, and they're stuck here. And so after the fact, and it's always after the fact, and that's why these battle reports are good to do for me, is that I get to dissect my own mind and what I thought might be a good idea, but really what should have happened is the moment that I see that this deficit in deployment, this differential, was going to happen, I should have just been like, alright, I'm just going to deploy my entire battle group together, castle up is what people say, like when you're outnumbered, instead just try and make sure you look after everything. And so what I should have been doing is some kind of layering, maybe just put the Abyssals right here in the middle, all the lower Abyssals, and then put the Horsemen and the Tortured Souls behind, and just essentially just get everything nice and compact. Maybe put Baal and the Abyssal Champion out on the sides or something, but try and protect things, because then I won't get surprised with any flank of his army overwhelming one. Yes, I will have to be taking on multiple sides as they come in, but it would have just been better to deploy like that just from the get-go. Like, this is before even I get to the table. Well, not before I get to the table, but before I start putting things down. That's really what I should have done. And unfortunately, I did not. I just deployed like this in kind of a hazed response, and you can see there's my coffee there, and I'm trying to get through it because I need it to help me. So yeah, that was kind of the deployment that I had there. So let's actually go through the specific units on his side. So we see over here now, so this is actually deployment's done. So we have the Death Engine Spewer there to shoot my horsemen. We have the Tunnel Runner Cavalry with the Brew of Sharpness. Then there's the first horde of shock troops. I'm not sure if they've got plague pots or they've got, or the scrying. These might be the scrying gem ones. And then we have here the first of the Mutant Rat Fiends, and then behind him you can kind of see a bit of it. There's the standard, so there's the Swarm Crier, and then the Warrior Regiment, the other Mutant Rat Fiend, and there's the Master Scurrier. Now you can, so that's all on one flank, and all that's opposing them really is, I guess, Baal kind of, but mostly just my Abyssal Horsemen and the Gargoyles. And then you can see one of the Shredders there. This is just an angled picture, I think. But you can see the two Shredders on the other side of this blocking train to just shoot down here mostly against my unit strength, because he adequately identified that all my unit strength was in some relatively weak stuff. So 7 of my unit strength was in those lower abyssals, and they are not hard at all to remove with these Shredder. So he's positioned them to take on those and some of the monsters as well. And then we can see in front, we've just got, I guess, to try and slow down some of my advances that might be made on the Shredders. There's the Vermin Tide, so that's a swarm unit. Then we have Twitch Kenia, represented by that Skaven Warlock model, and the other horde of shock troops, just ready to, I guess, oppose my horde of lower abyssals and prevent my not so cunning tactic of just trying to get at least one unit across the line. Ideally, you'd like to get the whole army across the line, but here we are. So, and everything's just a bit faster as well. His whole army has just, I think it's overall is all speed 6 at least, like the infantry, and then so he's going to get to the halfway point faster than I will, because all of my stuff is speed 5, apart from the cavalry and some of the monsters, but I'm not going to push them out by themselves, that's for sure. So, to add insult to injury, not really, I mean, it's just turn 1. It's not like 40k where I'm going to get shot off, but he got turn 1. So, he gets to start the advance straight away. Much like you see here, all these terrifying things rolling forward, that's what we have. So they don't roll forward actually all that menacingly, they just kind of, they can't do any charges obviously, they don't have the range, and we've got all these hills in the way, so they're just trying to get up, staying outside of that 16 inches just, because they do know that these guys can delete a unit if they do hit it. And I can see these two, and I think they're, so I can see everything, but I just can't charge it in this case. So I've just got that to contend with, wonderful. And then on this side, everything just moves up a little bit as well. So the hordes, everything just has moved up gradually. I think it's just a full 6 inches. Here we have a wavering, so 9 damage done by those shredders. So that's a lot of shooting into my lower abyssals, and fair enough, these guys, defense 3, you get to wound them on 2s. So yeah, it's not the perfect outcome with the wavering. They're going to sit back, so it's going to take them even longer just to get ahead. So a little bit annoying that. But that was it, just a bit of shooting. Turn 1 for me. So this was not smart. What I should have done and what I did are completely different things. So what I did is I just turned 90 degrees and tried to get out. I was like, get away, but 8 inches, haven't gotten very far, have I? And I thought to cover my ass, because I think somewhere in charge range, I just moved the gargoyles up because I'm like, oh no, oh no. But no, not smart, I think. I should have accepted the fate that there was dished up to these horsemen and just tried to move them in range to get a charge off, but now they absolutely cannot get a charge, so not good. I don't know what I was thinking at the time, but I was panicking, and that is evident here. And so part of that panicking maneuver you can see here is the Abyssal Champion has charged in to stop the Mutant Rat Fiend, just because for some reason that was the one identified as the major problem. I could have charged perhaps this one because he's a bit closer, but really if I could have, it would have been charge these, and that's actually what I should have done with the gargoyles. If these guys are going to run, then I should have charged with the gargoyles into those tunnel runners. Obviously not doing anything, but enough to hopefully stop them and force them to deal with my gargoyles, and then maybe they really would get away, because then next turn they can at least go the full 16 until they hit until they hit that obstacle. But instead these guys sat here and I charged with the Abyssal Champion, who I should have held off for one more turn instead, but I charged him into the Mutant Rat Fiend to be like, no! Too keen to try and stop his plans from unfolding, but the plans weren't unfolding just quite yet. On this side, everything is just scrambling, apart from these guys. They're kind of just stuck there. So yeah, the Abyssal Regiment's just stuck there, regenerated just a little bit, but not enough, wavering, and so everything else is just kind of moving forward to put out some threat, and the Tortured Souls are moving up in front of the horde of lower abyssals to go punch into these shock troops, to either soften them up so that when the horde of lower abyssals get there they can take them down, or do it all by themselves, because yeah, Tortured Souls are awesome. And I moved up the Abyssal Champion just a bit so that eventually he'll get around the side and help deal with it all. And I think the plan was, moving up the Abyssal Fiend and the Warlock, was to hopefully just shoot off these annoying vermin tide, because I knew they would just kind of get in the way. So over here I did manage to do a bit of damage, I believe, so I've charged in, and you get 1 damage, very good. But what's that to achieve? I don't know. And so that's the advice I've got to give myself right now. Why was I doing this? I won't know, but I did it, and I have to live with the fact that it's now on a video for all to see, including Hugh. I mean, he got to see firsthand me doing some of these things. He's probably just like, this guy's a YouTube channel. But yeah, you know, this is me in the morning. I'm not very good when it comes to mornings. I don't do exercise in the morning, but that's not really an excuse. I'm not exercising here. I'm just trying to push some toys around. So anyway, I get in. He's not going to get past me, but that doesn't matter because the entire flank over here, all this is still going to come down. So really, if I had all the Abyssal Champions to take on those, I should have done that. But if not, I should have just held him off so he could charge those tunnel runners and stop them in their tracks instead. And let's see where those tracks lead them in turn 2 for the Ratkin. So moving up further, finally out of the forest, we have the Shock Troop Horde with Twitch Kenia right behind, ready to buff them when is needed. And like a slow crash, you know, when you see those car crashes or the crash test dummies, we can see the disaster unfolding on the left flank, where the well-placed gargoyles have now allowed those tunnel runners to be in the perfect position to just be get in. They get the full distance. They've charged from here to here. They're now facing the perfect place to go continue and kill my Abyssal Horsemen, unfortunately. And these gargoyles won't hold up very well at all. Whereas instead, what I could have done is I could have charged with the gargoyles, caught the tunnel runners right here where they were just, I guess about 6 inches out from their deployment zone, kept them there for turn 2, because they would have to hit back in their turn 2, and then turn 3 they'd be here, and I'd be gone. Well, anyway, that's what I should have done. I think there's times where I need to know that I need to just place the gargoyles, because sometimes that's important, because you can change the way that someone else is facing. And I didn't do that here, they're not facing in any way that's beneficial to me. Or there's times where you should charge the gargoyles off your chaff to stop them where they are. So there's 2 kinds of things, and there's some units you just can't stop, like a Lord on Frostfang. They get around anything, but in this case, that's what I should have done. So yeah, do not use this. Use my advice now as education experience, but do not do what I do. Do what I say, kind of. Yeah, and so yeah, just a counter charge onto my gnome glass shield dude right there, I believe, as well. And the spewer is just moved up a bit, getting the toe on, so he can do some shooting. So he's just put his leader point onto the hill, and now he'll be able to shoot over it. I'm looking down here. I believe this is indicating that some kind of shooting is about to go down, and it did, getting a up to 12 damage here. So that's just 4 extra damage. I mean, before he did amazing, he did 9. So now 4, because he regenerated to 8. 4 is not amazing, but it still hurts. And yeah, they wavered once again. Fantastic. And here, the Death Engine Spewer just did 1 wound. So why was I so scared about it? I really should have just gone up and charged. Could have got a charge off and maybe taken something. Maybe the Tunnel Runners, if we're going for the most unit strength, or the Horde here. But it's the end of the range phase, and now it's when you roll, and actually no, they're not wavered. I lied! They're gone. So there goes 3 unit strength. I'm already down. Terrifying. So it's on the back foot already. Despite my defense 6, I do take some damage from the Mutant Rat Fiend, which means my Gnome Glass Shield is shattered, so I'm no longer as protected as I once was. It's okay for now. I've held him up. To what end? I don't know, but I'm holding him up. And unsurprisingly, the gargoyles did not last the fight. I mean, our double ones would have been really cool, but yes, it was not to be. So now I'm fully exposed. Can I get far enough away? I don't think so, because these guys are very fast, and I'm not that fast, and limited by the obstacle that is now in my way. And that's how it looks. I just zoomed out a bit just to really take into the whole situation that I'm in. Oh no, actually, because they moved back. So we've got these guys, they moved forward, and they rolled the full distance to stop just away from me. So yeah, fantastic. They're even closer. So I literally don't think I can outrun them at all, even if I got the full 16, because you can see the way that base is, it is slightly past the end of my base there. So even the full 16 means from that base, I am 16 inches away. Whether I can get out of their arc, perhaps, but I don't think so. No. But it's turn 2, so maybe I can turn it around. Probably not there, but maybe other sides. And so I'm literally turning around. In fact, there's this whole army turning around. And so what I did is trying to fix the situation. I've got my Abyssal Horsemen running away this way. So just looking at the left here for now. The Abyssal Horsemen are running away. They've kind of turned, knowing that they can't do the 16 all the way and actually get out, so that they've tried to get out of at least that arc. So they're out of the arc of one thing, and the only thing that they're still in the arc of is the warriors and the Mutant Rat Fiend here that I just left with my Abyssal Champion. The Abyssal Champion has now gone to tag the other Mutant Rat Fiend to stop it trying to get into the flank. But unfortunately, I think that means I go into the flank here. So I see, yeah, why did I do that? I'm not sure. But what I did do is, you can just see there the manifestation of Baal has flown in, being a very, very expensive piece of chaff to go into the horde of shock troops. It's just not the way, and it's on an obstacle, so he's really not going to do much. He's going to be hindered, and it's a sad situation. So really, what I should have done is just said, you know what? Okay, yeah, the horsemen, I guess they're gone. Maybe I'll just have to kamikaze them in. Take out maybe the tunnel runners and just accept my losses, and then use the rest of the army to get and take over this whole side. But instead I'm like trying to save these Abyssal Horsemen. Can I save them? So the Abyssal Champion is bouncing between Mutant Rat Fiends. Baal's gone into some horde of shock troops. Everything's just not getting the way I want it to be. I'm trying to bring this Cronius over here as well to, I guess, put some threat on anything that tries to enter this space. But I mean, you know, if you're going to take out these, you don't care about the Cronius. Like, he'll put a Mutant Rat Fiend, and he knows that the Cronius, while it does quite a bit of damage, probably not enough to take out a Mutant Rat Fiend. Maybe in the flank, but probably not. And I've brought him over here now to just do some shooting. So the Abyssal Warlock is going to do some shooting as well, maybe just to try and stop some things if possible. On the other side, though, I've got the Tortured Souls managed to pull off that charge into the horde of shock troops, so that's pretty good for unimpeded charge. So I'm going to get the full thing, and now the lower Abyssals can move up a bit, albeit slowly because of this difficult terrain, so that they'll eventually cross that finishing line. So yeah, we'll just, and the Abyssal Fiend has just moved up and is, I believe, in range for fireballing those Vermintide, which will hopefully happen. So here we can see a few different dice have appeared, so I believe that would be, chances are I've been taking this picture after I did all my phases, so I've done some shooting on the warriors here with the Warlock, so that's not bad, and now I'm trying to piece together these combats. The Fireball, very dismal, 1 damage, so with Shattering that's definitely still a high roll to get rid of them. Over here though, I do manage to plow in and do quite a bit of damage. Not sure if I'm showing it, but I believe that token means that they're wavered. Here, the Abyssal Champion did a phenomenal 3 wounds. Good on him. But yeah, he's just getting into a situation. Even though I did get into him, it's just silly. Why did I do that? Because he can't. He's not actually physically stopping the Mutant Rat Fiend from just marching on, regardless. And so, well, perhaps what I should have done is gone into these guys, or just flown out of the situation to come back in later, or in the case that my actual plan was to hold him off until turn 2, then he could have stopped this guy in the front, instead of having to bounce from that to that, because stopping this guy in the front really didn't achieve much apart from the fact that at least he's not here. But no, it's not the best use of the Abyssal Champion in this game. Please watch the other games for examples of better ways to use the Abyssal Champion, particularly against the Mind Screechers. I think that was his best showing. And here, yeah, Baal hindered. Everyone knows that anything flying hindered is just not going to be doing great. I mean, he doesn't have to rely on Thunderous, but still, 2 wounds. Definitely no problem for this horde to deal with. And here, 6 wounds. Still not enough to worry them, but 6 wounds not too bad with the Tortured Souls, probably slightly below average, but you know they can grind pretty well. So now it's turn 3 for the Ratkin. So how are they going to push on through everything I've just kind of put in the way? Well, in turn 3 we have this wonderful multi-charge here. So yes, look at the Abyssal Champion just going, oh, that didn't work at all. No surprise. He didn't manage to stop the Rat Fiend. Now I've got 2 Rat Fiends. So at least if he stayed in front of this one, he would have definitely stopped it. I mean, stopping one in the front and versus the flank, I mean, it's yeah, either way, you're dead, but at least I could have stopped some attacks, definitely. In this case, I stopped no attacks, so I should have just stayed in with this Mutant Rat Fiend. And I got the Warriors, but the Warriors are the least of my problems. Baal, at least, is still holding up this horde, but now the Tunnel Runners have turned a bit, ready to charge later, if for some reason these guys manage to survive. Oh, and the Master Scurry is he's actually in combat with the Abyssal Champion, it's just the hill's not really letting that matchup happen because everyone's just trying to fall down. Over here, I didn't really describe what was happening with my Despoiler Champion, but he has managed to circumnavigate this building and was going to get ready to go into the flank, but the Vermintide, taking the opportunity, have gone straight in. A hindered charge to be sure, but all they need to do is just get in there, and I don't think they're going to take it out, but I think he was just hoping to slow him down. But it's the same kind of thing. I guess they're just hoping to waver. Because otherwise it's the same thing with me and his Mutant Rat Fiend with my Abyssal Champion. Like, going in the side doesn't stop at all, so I guess he'll just get some wounds in. And not get fireballed, to be fair. Yeah, he just stops getting fireballed because he might just lose them to a fireball from the Fiend. Speaking of the Fiend, he has become target number 1 for the Shredders, but you can see Defense 5 versus Defense 3 is a big difference, so I have only taken 2 wounds. Not too bad. Over here, they do no damage. So not only do they not worry me in the slightest in terms of, like, they'll need a double 6 twice to waver me. They don't do any damage. There's no nerve test whatsoever. And then these guys got really lucky because 13 damage was done to them, so it means they only need a 4, but double ones is just what I needed. So that will give me time for my troopers, the lower abyssals, to come in and get a little bit closer while these guys try and finish them off. So that's pretty good. And then over here I take a couple of wounds. Not many, I believe. Oh no, that's 9 wounds. He did a whole lot. So Duelist really worked very well there. And I'm gone. So Gnome Glass Shield Man, this is his worst showing of all of them. I think, yeah, even against the burrowing, the Great Flying Worm, he did pretty good because he held it up for 3 turns. But yes, in this case, trying to do the same thing to Mutant Rat Fiends and then not really sticking to any particular one of them, that was very dumb indeed. So I'm not smart in this game. And so yeah, he just moves on, and that's it. Now it's on to Bael, who takes 7 wounds, and he's 14-16, so he's reasonably good. But unfortunately, the Abyssal Horsemen are not reasonably good. They are gone. And so now everything is repositioned. We've got the warriors and the Mutant Rat Fiend flipping around to face the rest of my army. And this one just this Mutant Rat Fiend just backed off a bit. So yeah, not a great situation. And now poor Bael has chaffed nothing and will probably die for nothing. So it's on to turn 3 for the Force of the Abyss, with not much of the army remaining beyond the monsters and the lower abyssals. So we continue the fight on here. We charge in with the Tortured Souls, and we also charge in with the flank with the Despoiler Champion, doing a good number because he'll be going in the flank. He's got his brutal, so he's actually going to contribute quite a lot to this fight. The Abyssal Fiend has now just decided, well, now I'm on this side, I might as well just go off and kill some war machines. So he's now decidedly heading in their direction. The Cronius is completely unsure of what to do in life and has decided to actually back up because the train wreck that is the left flank doesn't appeal, and I've started to realize that I probably should stop throwing things into that little fire, because yeah, I've already thrown in the Abyssal Champion, Bael, Gargoyles, and just to try and save those Abyssal Horsemen, which were the source of that fire, you know, the charcoal. So I probably should stop feeding it, but you know, I guess it becomes, you just start enjoying watching the flames, and so that's what I've done today, at the start, for this game at least. And the Abyssal Warlock has also decided to show his neglect and turned back to at least some units that matters. And so in that combat phase, there's not that much shooting to talk about now, but in the combat phase, yeah, we take them out, and so the Tortured Souls move up a bit. They've got their life leech kicked off a bit, so they've got some wounds back, but they're still pretty delicate, and now my Despoiler Champion is at least facing the Vermintide. Over here, we do have the Regeneration doing a fantastic number for Bael, so you can see it's gone to 4 to 3, and I'm looking at their damage, and I think I only did 2 more damage. It's gone up to 4, so still not very good. So Bael, will he survive? I don't think so. Turn 4 for the Ratkin. So now we've got these guys having gone around the flank, because now they can do that charge, and them being in the front, they weren't actually engaged, and I was past their leader points. They could do another flank charge. So they're just going to try one more time. Come on, double attacks. They should be able to get at least 1 wound, because that's what Hugh was like. He's just like, come on, I was rolling so many dice and it does nothing. I'm like, yeah, I guess, you know, defense 5 counts for something, and it is Vermintide after all. Whereas Twitchkenia is like, ooh, nope, don't want to be here, because well, he doesn't really contribute much to this scenario, but he really doesn't have much to do here anymore, because he was buffing that unit, and I didn't mention it before, you can see that I have a Banechan token there, so he did actually get Banechan off on the Horde, and they did get to reroll their entire dice. That's how they got that 13 damage, which is really high on my Tortured Souls, but yeah, they're double ones, so you know, you get really lucky, and then you get really unlucky. It kind of comes in 2 waves. And over here is a close-up of the Cronius now getting charged by that Mutant Rat Fiend that the Abyssal Champion should have held up for the extra turn, or should not have gone into in the first place. So, yes, it's not going to be great. It's not going to go down completely quickly because I am defense 5, but I've got no source of healing, unfortunately, and my dash 18 is equaled by his dash 18, so it's just we're just going to pummel each other until one crumbles or one ruptures. And Baal is now taking the full brunt of what was meant for the Abyssal Horsemen by getting a charge from the Tunnel Runners and from the Death Engine and from the Horde, so yes. Unless there's another double ones in the offing, which I can't bank on, it's over for Baal. And I should have just flown him away, or run away, or limped away, as soon as I realised that things were not going down great at all. And then this picture is just showing that actually the Master Scaria is now getting his throwing blades out, because I think he was taking a look to see, yes, maybe he could charge in, but I don't think he really wanted to, because the charge in would just ask for a counter charge, where he would just die. And he thought, well, he's been doing so well so far, so he decided that instead, no, he would just throw some knives instead, and it works out pretty well because he gets 4 wounds on it just with the throwing knives. So he's rolling hot with those pink dice. Definitely have to get some pink dice of my own. So he's taking damage from this more than the shredders. You know, watch out for the assassins with their throwing knives. And over here, the shredders, though, why they weren't shooting at him, him being the Abyssal Fiend, they were shooting my tortured souls because they're already on such high wounds. You just need to make a nerve test. That's all you need to do. Just be like, no, here's a bit of damage. Take a nerve test, and it worked. He shot them and destroyed them. So there go the tortured souls. There's another bunch of unit strength. So now I'm really just down to my horde of lower epistles against his entire army of unit strength, and I just can't kill it. So already I'm just like, oh, that's invaded. It's done. Because even if I could get my units engaged, but I can't, is because he's skewed his entire army to the other side. So like that's why I should have castled up in the middle, so I can kind of control the board as best I can, and hopefully meet his army and take out enough of it as I just push my way through. But instead I spread out my army too thin, and he was able to attack just the most powerful part of it, but by itself, and leave the vulnerable but more numerous part just to kind of just do its own thing and get shot by shredders, because the shredders were perfectly suited for shooting lower abyssals. Yeah, those bloody shredders. I was just angling it just to make sure that I remembered. And here we have 7 damage, which is pretty good for this guy, right in the front. So yeah, 7 damage was done to Micronius. So it's up to Micronius to try and equal that on the return. And Baal indeed has perished. So long live Baal. He is now no longer in this world. I mean, he never really was. He was a demon. He was a manifestation of a demon from somewhere else, but he is now truly not here. And so everything just marches on, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, they're too far away to really, I guess the Tunnel Runners, for instance, could, but everything else is, as long as they're on this side, and you can see that midline right there, yeah, there's unit strength 4, unit strength 3, unit strength 1, so that is already 8 unit strength right here. There's 3 there, so there's already far more unit strength than I have, even on the board, full stop, let alone if I can get it across. So, yeah, unfortunately, it is a loss right here, unless I can kill a lot, but I can't because I'm not in range. So it's already turn 4, halfway through the game, and I'm like, ah, shit, I really have made a lot of mistakes. So now you just get to watch me try and, shuffle around the broken pieces of Lego. And so, yes, the Cronius continues to fight, goes back in. Despoiler Champion moves into the forest, so he can stop being hit by these guys, the Vermin Tide, and instead I'll just shoot the Vermin Tide, because I'm just like, I'm not going to try and fight these guys in combat, it's stupid. And I definitely want it to be in here, so because he's at least 1 unit strength, he's 1 unit strength, 1, 2, 3, 4, so I've actually got a whole 8 unit strength here, and he only needs to make the difference with his Mutant Rat Fiends. And unfortunately, one of the Mutant Rat Fiends is gnawing on my Cronius, so that's 1 unit strength that is potentially no longer in the game. But you can see my Abyssal Fiend is happily now munching away on some shredders. They don't really help with the scenario, but it just helps my ego. Going in and doing triple attacks with a Fiend is definitely damn satisfying. Yeah, I just took a picture over here just to remind myself what it was I was contending with on the other side. And so Micronius does do a phenomenal amount of wounds, really. He did 9, so he did better on the return strike. So pretty good, but unfortunately there's nothing nearby to heal, and he can't heal himself. Imagine if he could heal himself with those 3 kind of pseudo life leech wounds, that would be really cool. But unfortunately, he only affects time for others, not for himself, and that is the true tragedy. No surprises here, but the Shredder is gone, so that's cool. A little bit more attrition for me, helping offset the deficit between us. And turn 5 for the Ratkin. So really, it's just him rearranging his army a little bit. And that's what's occurring. We can see that the mutant rat fiends are now starting to group up on my Cronius. This one's getting ready to go in. And there's some healing going on with the Radiance of Lives and the regeneration. So all that damage I did. So this can heal, my Cronius cannot. So that's already terrible. And he's just turned the model a bit sideways so that they don't actually bump into each other. You know, Monster Titan problems, you know, they always bump into each other. They don't always hang on over the base. The vermin did not get shot enough, so they're just moving around a bit. And that's about it over here. Side, the rest of the army has just fully occupied its position on the other side of the invade line, so that it's very clear what's going on, and that brings tears to my eyes. Not really. I mean, he did a good job redeploying and using that in this invade scenario. It was not the scenario for me, and I didn't then try and I guess position myself and deploy well enough to try and at least mitigate some of the downsides of this matchup. And then what we can see here is just a bit more of the army. Yeah, the warriors are moving up, just in case anything doesn't get fully destroyed. And not sure what he's shooting at with his shredder, but it might have been finally the first turn where the shredder wasn't actually very effective. Because that does happen to war machines. They usually don't do that much damage. And so here's just another picture showing the doom coming my way. If somehow I manage to hold off all these things, there's even tunnel runners coming in with the Brew of Sharpness. But here we can see that we've got Twitchkinia, who's just moved, and I believe he was going to hex something, probably hex, I think he's trying to hex the Warlock, but no such hex occurred. We've got the Master Scurrier coming up, and he's going to just throw some more knives into the back of my Abyssal Fiend, who's entirely undeserved. Did manage to do some wounds because it's gone from a D6 now to a D20, so obviously some wounds were occurring. And I just got to get away from that guy because he's really annoying. And yeah, the rest of my army is just like, ooh, gotta get away. So it's kind of like that meme with the kid running away from there's the monster. Anyway, I'll just post it up. But it's like that meme. My whole army is like, oh gosh, running away. And even some extra shooting was happening here on my Warlock, and I believe that would have come from... Where would that have come from? Hey, maybe that was no, it couldn't have been yeah, it must have been the Shredder. Yeah, of course, he's still got War Machine, so the Shredder's just trying to take out my Warlock. Which is a little bit rude, but understandable. But now we're in combat, and we can see that the Cronius has finally perished. He couldn't take another round of battering. He had 7 wounds already, and if it was another 7 again, that means he only needs a 4. I didn't leave the wound dice there, I just took them all away. And so we've got the Mutant Rat Fiend now facing the proper way. So it's turn 5, and so I've just got a few little things I want to tick off my bucket list. And one of those is charging the other War Machine and taking it out and being like, yeah, well, you did manage to kill all the unit strength from my army, so I'm just going to kill you. These War Machines alone have been responsible for taking off 6 unit strength, the Horde of Tortured Souls and the Regiment of Lower Abyssals. So 6 unit strength they have taken off on their own. And I don't have much unit strength in my army, despite having Khazar's formation, but that is the bulk of it, as well as my 2 hammers. So I guess that's the problem when you start taking too many of the monsters and stuff. So perhaps I shouldn't have taken so many monsters. But in previous games there have been the things that have won me the games because they survived. So it's just they're just not that great in Invade because they just don't bring much to the table. Literally don't bring much. And I do quick pictures because there's not many to show, but I did kill it. So good on you. He's at least made his points back. But now it's turn 6. It's all happening so fast, so fast. Yeah, and I didn't have any pictures for turn 6 because I guess maybe sometimes it's when you take too much trauma and you forget things. Your brain tries to protect you. But no, I think I literally just didn't take any pictures of what occurred, and we'll just have to try and piece it together in the pictures of my turn. So turn 6 for Forces of the Abyss. And so what we can see is that, well, actually still everything's kind of here, apart from, well, no, everything's here. So the Fiend just moved around, the Warlock, everything's just moved further in, and the rest of his army's like, I don't care. So everything with unit strength has gone to the other side, And all that remains over here are the individuals just trying to hopefully take something out. We've got the Master Scurrier over there throwing his knives, and we've got Twitch Kenia not really sure what to do because he doesn't actually have any real damage output despite the fact the model holds a pistol. And my Lower Abyssals have made it successfully to the finishing line of their marathon. So good for them. So I do have 7 unit strength on this side, so that's not awful, but it's certainly not anywhere near the victory. Oh, I don't think it's too far off, so it's literally just I need more things to survive to get them across, and things like Defense 3 Abyssals aren't going to do it. Tortured Souls usually aren't surviving until the end of the game, but yeah, the definitely on me is the loss of the Gargoyles and the Abyssal Horsemen, because that was atrocious. I probably would have lost them anyway, but maybe I would have taken out a unit, and by taking out a unit, then this differential wouldn't have been a problem, right? Like, it would actually maybe have been a draw, perhaps. So maybe when you see these situations where you're like, this is bad, but how can I at least get a good trade? That's what I should have done. I should have just been like, oh yeah, this is bad. My Sharpness horses are now against his entire army, but what will make that at least okay? Instead of going, can I get them out? Maybe I can. Maybe if I could just get them away and bring them to the other side and do what? I don't know. Like, just bring them to the other side to fight. There was nothing over here to fight anyway. So really, they should have just taken the dish they were served. I guess is my sage advice for myself 2 months after the fact. So I've just turned around. I guess I was hoping to shoot back and, maybe get a lucky 6/6 and take something off, because some of these units have got quite a few wounds on them. But yeah, it's not to be. And so over here, just showing that maybe I can try and take out Twitch Kenia just for fun, with a fireball perhaps or something, but no, also did not happen. And so we're almost at the last slide. That's this one. I did manage to do a couple of wounds, 5 wounds, which is pretty good, but still didn't take him off, which wouldn't have changed the outcome whatsoever. He hasn't got any unit strength, but the last 2 turns of this game, I really was just doing, oh, what can I do here? What can I do there? Just maybe I can kill some stuff, get that attrition. And that is really what you do when you are really losing badly, is that you just try and figure out if you can get any other ways to bring that, because when the loss happens in blackjack, it goes to 14 to the winner, 7 to you, to make that total of should be 14, 7 to 21. Anyway, I know maths. But then the way it works is then you've got attrition points that can help give, depending on the difference, more to whoever took out more, and then you've got also the difference in the victory points. And you can actually push them to getting close-ish to a draw. But unfortunately, that was not the case today. But I did lose this one. But it was nice. Hugh was a fantastic opponent. Like I said, when he was doing that deployment shenanigans, he could have been ultra sneaky. He could just been like, I'm putting them here, here, here. And he won't tell me. And then at the end, he's like, and now redeploy them. And I'm like, oh. I mean, still, it worked out very well in his favor, but it was the way he did it that just made it good, and so I'm definitely grateful for that. And yeah, just the way that the whole game was done, it was really fun. I was really enjoying myself, despite all these disasters are happening, and then I'm just chuckling. I'm just like, oh, can I make this any worse for myself? And yeah, sure enough, I can if I wanted to try really hard, and boy, did I try hard. So. Yeah, overall, great game. It's turned to round 4, done, and so it's 2 wins, 2 losses. So I've got 2 more games to try and pick it up, and so that's what I'm now focusing on. But I've done this game, my coffee's in my veins, and hopefully it's starting to take effect, and I'll do better on the next game. And so yeah, it's still a really good event. This is the thing: if you start losing, you still got to hopefully try and enjoy it still, because there is definitely a way that you can completely sour as you start getting some losses in. That the whole event is like, and I remember, for instance, the difference between Kings of War and say some other kinds of tournaments, because I did go to a grand tournament, a GT for Magic the Gathering years ago, maybe 5 years ago. I think Theros was the main set. Anyway, that might have been 5 years ago. Anyway, so me and my friends were really into Magic the Gathering. We'd each made some decks, and we went. And so we made, Magic the Gathering definitely falls into the case of net decks. Like there's so many people playing the game, there's definitely only some decks that will do really well, and others that are just not going to cut it in terms of just efficiency of what you get. And so, but when you start losing, it's 2 days, But when you on the first day, it's all everyone's could go anyway. It could go any way, and you want to get into that top. I think that event was like the top 80, and then you can start getting prizes, right? And then if you're in the bottom 160, you won't. And yeah, I ended up in the bottom 160, and I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna get a prize. And then what happens? No one else turns up for the entire, like that second day is only the top 80 are there. The rest have just disappeared. The turning up for the love of playing Magic, no, it's gone. No one wants to do that because yeah, it is. You're not playing a deck you like. You're playing a deck that you have to play to win. No one's designed these decks. I mean, maybe someone there was the original creator of that, but it's not like Kings of War where you've thought about your army, you've made your army, you like your army, you've painted this whole thing, and here you are playing it, and it's just you just feel like playing more games. I mean, ultimately, that's what this is. This is 6 games you get to play in a weekend. And when do you get to play 6 games in a weekend? It's very rare. So you just take advantage of it. You're just like, I'm playing games. This is great. Preferably, I would like to not be playing games at 9 o'clock in the morning. I would like to be playing them at like earliest 11. But that's just my personal preference. But I know a lot of people like to get their 3 games done well before dinner and go off. But I wouldn't mind having it a bit more later. But I'm in the minority, and I'll accept that. So, and otherwise, yeah, it's just overall, that's my advice from this game, as well as all the other pieces of advice, is just to enjoy any tournament that you go to, because you just get a chance to play all those games, even if you are losing. So, yeah, otherwise, that's the end of this game, and so, yeah, please tell me all the things I should have done. I think I've already covered most of the things, but there's probably some things I missed. So please let me know, and I'll look out for that. Otherwise, I will see you guys for the next video in round 5. Bye!